The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 41.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hi, everyone. I'm Thomas Senhero, filling in for Father Fett this week, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Today, we're discussing the newest season of the Clone Wars by looking at Episode 7, A Dangerous Debt, and Episode 8, Together Again. And together again with me tonight on the panel are Mike Creevy.
Hey, Thomas, how's it going?
It's going well. And Angela Cialana. Hi, Angela.
Hello.
All right, these two episodes seem to wrap up the Ahsoka Martez storyline for now, and they helped clear up some of the points we brought up in asking questions about this story in the last episode of Secrets of Star Wars. What did you guys think about these last two episodes?
Totally fun.
Yeah.
It was a really nice ride and very satisfying story arc, I felt, especially where we see it going. But a lot of philosophical themes in here and human themes and moral themes. And it was a lot to chew on. And the animation was nice again as well. Good character development. So, I mean, tie-ins to Rebels.
Yeah.
What more can you ask for?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was just a lot of fun. And, I think I at least hold out a little bit of hope that we might see these sisters again with, I don't know. I mean, you've got the announcement, of course, with live action Ahsoka coming up in season 2 of Mandalorian. Who knows? Maybe down the road there's a reunion with these guys. So we'll see. They're definitely a fun pair.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good group. And I think I was reading somebody's review of the episodes, and they were saying they hope that they see these two run into Han Solo at some point or another, because that would be a really cool combo to play off of each other, is these two characters who are very much like Han Solo with Han Solo and see how they interact with each other. So we'll just dive right into the episode recap. And episode 7 opens with the fortune cookie. Who you were does not have to define who you are. And we find Ahsoka and the Martez sisters prisoners of the Pike Syndicate on the planet Obadiah. Finally find out that the sisters' parents were killed during an event from season 2 of the Clone Wars when Cade Bane helped Zero the Hutt escape from prison on Coruscant. And apparently they blame those deaths on the Jedi. So did you guys remember this story arc or have any idea who the Jedi was that was talking with the girls?
Yeah, I had to go back and look at the episode. I didn't go watch it, but just kind of go look over it sort of, and I remembered that Cad Bane was when she said that it was a red-eyed alien protecting Zero. I was like, oh yeah, Cad Bane, yeah. So but I guess StarWars.com said that this was something that we didn't see on the actual episode. So I guess we didn't see the crash.
The episode was mostly about Anakin, and he was back in the Senate chamber. So he was back in the Senate where all the senators had been locked up together, and that was Cad Bane's plan, was to lock all the senators together and then escape with Zero that way. And so mostly it focuses on Anakin and the story around him and escaping from that. So we don't see this whole escape. So this was kind of a new bit of lore to add to that episode.
Yeah, and I think, there's something to that just from like a basic storytelling standpoint that I think we've gotten so used to just, I have to know, I have to see everything. I have to know every little detail. I have to know everybody's backstory. And even though that this is giving us more of their backstory, precisely that it's a sort of a branch off of something we were kind of following. We thought we were following the big picture and all that kind of stuff. But then here, these girls lost their whole family. in a scene that wasn't even, just from the standpoint of like the way we viewed that event the first time around. It's like we wouldn't have even noticed it either.
Yeah.
I almost feel like, so it was interesting because I had kind of guessed, I think in our last episode, I was sort of just speculating about like, I wonder if there's something, I just had a feeling like there's something more here than meets the eye, but I didn't even really quite imagine that. And I was really still blown away with the whole idea of like trying to imagine here's these two young girls and, like all these adventures and this big picture stuff going on. And it is important, but how do you communicate that to someone whose, whole world has been taken away by it? And there's definitely some faith connections with that too. You can know the answer, but is that satisfying, for someone who's just had that kind of toll taken? So I thought that was a really interesting dimension to it.
Right.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about oh my gosh, the Jedi's name, the Jedi that I was guessing that it was, okay, help me out. The one with the
chin
facial tattoos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one with the chin, Luminara.
What is her name?
Luminara and
Julie. Yeah. So I was guessing that it was her. Yeah. And that
I think
quote,
that's the general consensus of it.
Yeah.
That quote, I had to make a choice, but not to worry, the Force will be with you. It reminded me actually of that verse from the letter of St. James in the New Testament, where he's talking about faith and works. And he says, if a brother or sister has nothing to wear and no food for the day, and one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and eat well, but you do not give them the necessities of the body, what good is it? So he's talking about, just the importance of doing practicing what you preach. And I think, that's an ever eternal theme of having any kind of faith, having the Force is believing in the Force and being a Force wielder is definitely a type of faith. And just the fact that she, as a Jedi, was having a very bad witness moment to these young girls, and that totally ruined their whole vision, of the Jedi. She could have done something, to help them out, but she didn't.
Right. And that's I think that's something that we have to be very mindful of when we're representing the faith, is that we're out there, and if we're not extending that extra hand, someone is going to see that, and that's going to affect the way that they think about religion, about organized help of any kind, and about God. And it's important for us to remember that we're the face, and we have to put some kind of action to it when we're there. So yeah, I was really struck by that too, and that's the way that a lot of people, when they get upset about the do something instead of just offering your prayers mentality, that's what they're thinking, and they forget that a lot of us are offering our prayers because there's not anything we can do directly, but we're doing things like we're giving, or we're involved, or we're staying in touch. I know for us personally, we're part of a justice ministry here, and one of the things that we do is we just go to these rallies. They're kind of political rallies, but mostly it's just like getting politicians to complete their promises, and it's about just showing up and having 5,000 people stare at you while you have to tell them, well, no, I'm not actually going to do that. It makes a difference when a politician has to look at people and actually say they're not going to do something. And so sometimes sometimes it's as easy as that, which is one thing I want people to take away. And then another way to think about it too is that it's important to actually act on the things that you feel strongly about. Not just say, well, that's a shame, or the Force will be with you, but to fix it, to make sure that it's made right in some way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was a really bulky moment in the episodes that I thought was well done too, though, because like you were saying, Mike, it's kind of backstory, it's side story, and it's stuff that we don't think about a lot. And I think there's a lot of small moments like that in these episodes that are really good. So from there they go on, and in the midst of being tortured at the command of Marg Krim, who's the Pike boss in this area, for information about the spice they didn't deliver, we see Trace start to grow a little bit of a backbone. with her getting angry about her sister's torture and then her eventual escape from the torture. So I like seeing her kind of grow into this, actualized character over the course of these couple episodes here.
And I did think, by the way, I thought that she had Rafa had kind of a Han moment there when they're taking her away. She's like, Trace, if I die, you get the family business.
Right. Yeah. And Trace is like, I don't want the family business. Yeah.
That was so good.
Yep. And then and so that all kind of leads up to this moment of the sisters arguing, and when Ahsoka manages to reunite them, and when they're running from the Pike guards, and they have that moment where they bump into each other and they get into the big argument about who's right and who's going to say which one. I love that. I had to go back and watch it again because I had to see who Ahsoka sided with, because it was kind of a confusing scene. So I had to go rewatch it a couple of times ago. Okay, she is actually siding with Trace there. So Trace was right. just for the record. I think that's important. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm liking Trace a lot more now. I thought that she was kind of whiny and loose in the first couple episodes.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, she's doing pretty well under pressure, as it turns out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was a little nervous about that too with her first piloting, when she just gets in the wrong lane and just kind of stays there. You're like, ah.
Yeah, she seems to think really quick on her feet, and she seems to be a quick learner. Maybe a little bit stubborn, but she does seem to adapt well. And I guess, that was just the way that she grew up. She kind of had to have those skills. But yeah, I do like her a lot more now.
That was another one of those like Han connections, but more from like Solo, with the whole flipping it to, I got a really good feeling about this, and she's kind of learning pretty quick. Yeah. Did you guys catch the Wilhelm scream in there?
Yes, I was just about to mention that, actually.
I'm so sorry.
Fight. No, that's great, because it's kind of a running gag in my family. Like whenever the Wilhelm scream comes up, my kids are like, "Oh, it's the Wilhelm scream!" So that was there was a collective Wilhelm scream moment right there when they were in the firefight and the barrel explodes. The guy goes flying off. So for anybody who doesn't know what the Wilhelm scream is, go look it up on YouTube. You will find a great supercut of all the Wilhelm screams in Hollywood. It's a very often reused sound trope in Hollywood, and it's especially common in the Star Wars series. It's like all over the place in the Star Wars series. So after the firefight, they find themselves in the city outside the prison, and they're still arguing about how Ahsoka fits into this whole dynamic with the three of them. But peace doesn't last for long, and in the ensuing chase with the Pikes, we're given a moment to reconnect with the larger Star Wars universe in the shape of some disguised, quote-unquote disguised, Mandalorians who recognize Ahsoka and mention that she might ruin their operation by being on Obadiah. I didn't know who this was at this point, so this was kind of I had guesses as to who it was because it's the primary female Mandalorian that we see, but it made complete sense once we get the the later reveal. How about you guys? Who knew? Who didn't?
Well, so the clue, I guess, was Karlak, because I think that was when she said like, "Oh, that might be the Jedi that I met on Karlak," and I was like, "Karlak, what?" I was like racking my brain, and then you go look stuff up, and then I was remembering that there was an episode in season 4 where Ahsoka got her booty slapped. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep. Yeah, because we just did a watch through of that not too long ago. I felt like, didn't we? With some of the.
No, I don't think we actually hit that series of episodes. I think we skipped over that because we were trying to stay focused on the main string of them.
So this one, it did have to do with Death Watch.
Yeah.
But it was that kid that Lux Bonteri.
Yeah.
Who was sort of a romantic interest for Ahsoka for like a short time. And his mom
the village and
was
everything, right?
Yeah, and his mom was killed by Count Dooku.
Right.
Count Dooku had also betrayed Death Watch, and so he wanted to get up with Death Watch, and he did so on Karlak, and Ahsoka went with him.
That's what it was, yeah.
Ahsoka was like, I think it was Bo-Katan is like, "Who's this person that's with you, Lux?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm his betrothed."
Yep.
Yeah.
And then she was like, "Well, you look kind of skinny to be betrothed," and then she kind of like slaps Ahsoka on the butt like as a joke. I guess, or to sort of like,
yeah.
Troll them or whatever. Because I think she just doesn't like that there's another person in the situation. But anyway, that was when she met Ahsoka. So that was a blast from the past.
It's a good way to bring characters back in, right?
And I had been, I not too long ago finally did a Rebels watch through. So, she features prominently in that, obviously, as well, later in the timeline and everything. So that was, is it Katie Sackhoff, I think, does her voice? If I remember correctly, because
I believe
she always
so.
Sounds familiar, and I always forget because I'm thinking like, and it's like Battlestar Galactica 24 when she was on there. Like, it's just one of those voices. It's like, I know who that is, and then I go look her up, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm pretty sure it's her.
Yeah, it's Katie Sackhoff.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I was yeah, it was just kind of cool. As soon as they were sort of stepping out there, I was just like, and there's the Mandalorian connection.
Yep.
Because I feel like I hadn't forgotten about it, but it was like that we've all kind of been waiting for that,
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's that's we had mentioned it last time. Like, oh, this is connecting to Solo. I wonder if that's going to be how we kind of type things back in. And so now we're finally getting that direct line drawn through for us. It's like, yes, yay, this is good.
So, and StarWars.com says that the person that was standing next to Bo was Ursa Wren, who is the mother of Sabine Wren.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize that. That's cool, too.
Yeah. So that was another one that was a really neat tie together. And yeah, I think that it's interesting to see them here. And I love, I'm going to bring it up later, but the masks. So iconic and also so incredibly useful inside of the acting in general of Star Wars. But so the Pikes, I think, finally live up to their name and lay an ultimately effective trap for Ahsoka at this point, in the form of public display of executing the sisters. And she swoops in to try and save them, but ultimately is outgunned, and they manage the Pikes do manage the trap, and they all end up back in prison. So and I think that at this point Rafa finally admits that she shouldn't have taken the job, even though it's probably not for the right reasons. She admits it. She still admits that she probably shouldn't have taken this job.
And did you guys, real quick before I forget, because in the fight, kind of more like in the middle of the episode, when they're fighting on the elevator, and they're hanging there and the guy's stuck, and like you don't see what happens to him, but you can kind of guess.
Oh yeah.
I was sitting there and the first thing I thought of was it's kind of the inversion of the way Michael Ironside dies in Total Recall.
Yeah.
And I was just like, for a show that's often kind of considered a kiddie show, I was like, they were very careful to not show. But I like, as it was happening, I was like, oh, they're not going to do this, are they?
Yeah.
So like,
no, my kids were like, oh, that's pretty dark.
I was wondering.
Yeah, I was like,
if
yikes.
they would pick up on that.
Yeah. No. They all knew what was going on. They're like, oh. One of them, I think, even said, I think they're missing some blood there. Like, yeah,
right.
Definitely. And then and my wife made the save there. Are we sure that these are actually organic creatures? Or I was like,
good point.
I mean, I guess it could be droids, right? So I think at this point, one of the really good themes of this story arc shows up in the fact that we're talking about the absolute banality of evil with these characters. And one of the things that I love about Star Wars, it's archetypal. There's very clear evil, very clear good, and that's great. But then at the same time, you lose some of that sense of why are people evil? And we see here that the Pikes are evil not because they're trying to be evil, but just because they're trying to turn a profit. And we see that the sisters are on that spectrum of criminality, not because they're bad people, but just because they're trying to make ends meet. And this is how their skills kind of played out. And it was the system that failed them in the Jedi not doing something about the fact that they had lost their family and were now completely alone, but that they were making the best out of a bad situation. And so we see that it's not always about empires, but sometimes it's about just, trying to live life. And I thought that was a really good show of the banality of evil here.
Yeah. I think it was Trace that said, this life I have, it's not how I was raised. It's how it is.
Yeah.
And so she's talking about how like she doesn't like what's going on. She doesn't really like the job, but it's just to survive. And that reminded me a lot of when I was in college. I read like this really classic anthropological study called The Mountain People. And it's about the Eek people of Uganda, and they were in like a really terrible drought and famine. And what happened, basically, it's a chronicle of how their society just crumbled when everyone was just trying to survive. And you can see how it's horrific to read, just how like they would kick out their 3 and 4-year-old children out of the hut just because they couldn't feed them, and it's just like, go fend for yourself type of thing. They would let the old people die. If you find food, you eat it real quick. And just a lot of really, really terrible things that we think about as just part of society. You're supposed to be generous, you're supposed to help people, that's how you survive. But so that's a really classic sort of study of people who are now that there's no famine, now they're known for being very moral and very generous and very welcoming. But yeah, it's this idea that, when you're in that situation that Trace and her sister are in, that, you just do things that you really don't normally do.
Like buying a lot of toilet paper.
Right.
So that leads us to episode 8, Together Again. And I think the writers are thoroughly enjoying the multiple meanings to the titles here. I see a lot of times where you'll see the title and then it'll be like, oh, well, maybe that's about this plot line or this plot line or this plot line, or wow. And this one, it was like 5 different angles that I could take on the whole concept of Together Again. So it opens with the fortune cookie. You can change who you are, but you can't run from yourself. And we find the trio back in prison and still arguing about the spice and how they got there. So kind of full circle from where we were at the end of the last episode. I like here, though, that now we see a different Trace. So Trace is now not just standing up for herself and for her actions, but also standing up for the fact that she didn't like the idea of this job from the beginning. And so that's, she didn't want to inherit the family business because she's not really sure that she likes the things that they're doing. And we start to see that kind of play up a little bit bigger here. So Ahsoka tells the sisters that she has a plan, but they need to trust her, which seems hard for Rafa, but the two of them have been working together a little bit better. So they get called before Marg Krim to finally pay their debt. And Ahsoka begins her plan of betrayal of the sisters, which I thought was pretty... It was clever the way that she kind of played the, saying something and meaning 2 different things by it. And so it was really cool. And I like that Rafa picked up on it, and, that Trace was still kind of like naive about like taking everybody at face value, not really like understanding that there are multiple meanings going on to what's happening there. And then after Marg Krim agrees that they have one revolution, which I want to talk about that word a little bit, but they have one revolution to make good on their deal. We see this candid moment of him turning to his advisor and saying that, his life is on the line if the spice doesn't come through, because there's somebody else pulling the strings, somebody bigger pulling the strings. That's scary enough that the syndicate boss is kind of like, terrified of whoever it is that's pulling the strings. We don't know who it is yet, but that's good. So
he knows. He always knows.
He always knows.
I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
By the way, I love that part.
We know who knows.
We know who it is, yeah.
The Jedi reveal thing, by the way, I loved what she's like, I was trained, but I left. And they're both like, you can do that.
You can do that.
Yeah, that was a good moment, too. No, so I thought, and I'll mention it later because I think it's kind of funny. Because I was wondering about this. Like, what do they mean by one revolution? And then I was like, okay, so they mean one revolution. And really what it comes down to is the deeper you dive into Star Wars lore, the more you know that everything's based off of Coruscant time. So basically what they have is one Coruscant day to get this whole thing sorted out. And so that's the deal, is that you got a whole day. And I like that they're avoiding using those, that they're staying true to the technical terms there. That's kind of a cool writer's trick that's really playing in here. And they do it a lot in the Clone Wars. They've been really good about it, being consistent with that kind of thing. And I think when you go to this kind of cosmic scale, you have to. The moment we have here, though, now is we have another glimpse of the Mandalorians being highly interested in exactly what Ahsoka's up to. So when they see the sisters leaving the Pike's place, they mention that Ahsoka's not with them and that they need to keep track of when she leaves. So whenever she leaves, they need to make sure that they're paying attention.
They also said that they were on a mission, but we didn't get any sense of what that was.
Right.
So I guess it probably has something to do with the person who knows.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the point. This is the point where I was seeing the direct line being drawn from the Solo movies all the way through to the to the Mandalorian. So we're drawing a pre-Solo event here now in the Clone Wars all the way through the Solo movie and then out into the Mandalorian, which I think is fun. It'll be exciting to see how that all shakes down. But yeah, I'm wondering what the mission that they're on is too, and yeah, I'll mention that again too when we come to the next moment we see the Mandalorians. So the sisters get out, and we find out that Rafa is going to return to Obadiah to retrieve Ahsoka, just because otherwise Ahsoka would hang it over her head forever if she were to escape on her own.
And it's funny because we haven't known Rafa for long, but that's exactly what she'd do.
Yep, pretty much. And then in their classic form, they have a plan to heist some of the Pike's own spice to pay off the debt to the Pikes.
It was highly entertaining, though.
It was a fantastic, like the way it played out was great, but at the same time, it's like you wonder how they've made any money doing what they do. Right? Which I guess is kind of the Han Solo thing, right? You always wonder, like, why is it that he's the best? How is anyone saying that he's the best smuggler?
How is he effective?
Yeah. This does not seem to work. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting though, because now they're really both playing very much to their strengths. That was one of the things that I thought was really cool about, you see very clearly that Rafa's the mouth, and she's very good at talking really fast, and Trace is very good at keeping things in kind of an orderly fashion and making sure that they actually end up working.
Right. And so did you love the I guess they're called Toongs, like the little guys that were the dock workers, the same species as Ben Quadraneros?
Right.
Ben himself was not cute, but I thought these guys were cute because they were little blue guys, and didn't they have little microphones, or am I just like little head mics, or they had some sort of like earpiece or something on them? Yeah, like they were. I don't know. I was just imagining like someone, in a warehouse like Walmart or Sam's or whatever is like, I can't give you spice.
And one of my favorite parts is when she first starts talking to the guy who's loading stuff, is he's scratching his helmet. When she's talking to him, and I'm like, yep. I wonder how effective that is. But yeah, so Rafa convinces them to load the spice onto the ship. But in the meantime, we go back. So I like how it kind of flips back and forth between two stories at this point. So, we see this. Meanwhile, Ahsoka is breaking out of the prison, proving that you can take the Jedi out of the Council, but you can't take the heroics out of the Jedi. Just doesn't happen. And I love that moment where she like sees the whole tray of thermal detonators, and she's like, "Oh well, might as well do some good while I'm here."
That's when I started yelling at my TV, "Blow it up! Blow it up!"
I was waiting for oh my gosh, I just lost his name. It was the guy from earlier in the season. I can't believe it is Wrecker. I was waiting for Wrecker to just kind of like crying in the background. The happiest day of my life.
Yes. No, that's and so she makes a plan to use the thermal detonators to blow some stuff up. And while she's placing all of these bombs, she manages to make her way back to Marg Krim, and he's speaking to a hologram. and it's a cloaked hologram facing away from us. And then he turns around and it's like, yes, here we go. Finally, now we have the direct connection, because it is Darth Maul, who is the leader of the Shadow Consortium. Is that what it's called?
I think it's the Shadow Collective.
Shadow Collective. Yeah. So it's the Shadow Collective. And he makes a threat to Krim that if Krim can't come through with the spice delivery, that he's going to have the Crimson Dawn take over Pike's operation. So
Dryden Voss, and it's you know, it's funny because I had to look it up a little bit, and I didn't have a chance to really. And I don't know if it's just you guys, you know, like we're not to date this too much, but we're of course, you know, in the middle of kind of COVID-19 lockdown right now as we're doing all this, and there's all these, like, I keep hearing about like all these things you should watch, and I don't know if it's just, I don't really have, like, I've been watching less than usual. I find myself very busy right now, so I'm just sitting around. But I did go back and look a little bit, and I'm just trying to verify, but pretty sure the last time, like, within Clone Wars that we actually saw Maul was right after he just got lightning fried and didn't do too well against his old boss in that fight with Sidious. And I was just laughing because I know that apparently there's been a lot more in some of the comics and other stuff that have filled in some of what's happened from then till now. But of course, you know, they can't assume everybody's seen that. I mean, I haven't. So, I mean, so I'm looking forward to these next few episodes, kind of seeing how they fill that arc in. So we have a better idea of exactly what is the situation on Mandalore right now.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so that's, and I think that was a really interesting moment. Like, well, and before we go to there, I thought it was really cool when Maul senses Ahsoka. Like,
yes, and then he turns and he starts looking for her. I was like, wow, I didn't know you could do that with the hologram.
With a hologram, yeah. I was like, I'm wondering if they're trying to like. Either one, Maul is very powerful, which he must be. Like, honestly, I think Maul is one of the most, like, very, very, very high up on the power scale of Jedi or Sith, depending on how you want to take it. But so, you know, he's on a completely different planet and he's able to tell something's up. And I wonder if it's just that he's like so in tune with the Force that like he's like, something weird is happening over
I was thinking
there.
Because I'm pretty sure I was trying to go back and remember, because I'm pretty sure Vader Force choked Ozzel remotely. Snoke just sent Hux on quite a little like slip and slide ride, which is a pretty awesome scene. Say what you will about Last Jedi, but and then the I think there's a scene in Resistance, if I remember correctly, in season 2 where Kylo Ren starts to like warning choke some people through it. So I don't know what the range is through holograms, but it's something that there seemed to be expanding a little bit.
Well, I see, like, the justification I was coming up with is like, okay, it's like you're on a call with someone and you just have like this, you know, like that sixth sense where you're like, something feels odd. And it's not so much that you're like sensing the presence of someone specifically, but that you're like, something's off. Well, and it might be something over there that's off. And it's just like, you know, it's like that a Jedi's very in tune, and so they're taking in all of their sensory information. But then the thing that really bugged me was like, what can you see when you're a hologram?
Right.
Like, are you able to? Yeah. So
did he grab the handrail? Maybe he didn't, but I was wondering if
he turned around though. He turned all the way around sideways, watching her, like following her move.
Right.
And, yeah. So it was very obvious that he was not just distracted. He was looking for Ahsoka. So
So maybe it has to do with him being a Force user that, like, he's talking to somebody who has the Force through the hologram. So maybe there's a way you can like bounce the Force off of that person, and then like you can sort of see stuff. I don't know. I'm just theorizing.
Maybe like you can use their sensitivity, and so Mark Grimm might be noticing something but ignoring it because he's nervous. And in that moment, that's an interesting thought too. Hadn't thought about that. So yeah, I don't know. It was really, I thought it was like, I was like, whoa, that's expanding Force powers. That's it's an interesting moment right there. But, you know, Ahsoka can't leave well enough alone. So instead of just going on with her plan to blow stuff up, she has to go find out where Maul was coming from. And lo and behold, Maul's transmission is coming directly from Mandalore. So now we get to find out what's happening there. And then Marg Krim comes in with a bunch of his henchmen, and they manage to catch her. And this is the second moment in this series where you're like, man, she really needs her lightsaber back.
Right.
You see her fighting, and she's awesome, but you can tell she's obviously missing a limb in this fight. And that limb is a
two
very bright.
in her case, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's true, yeah, because she does use the two of them. So,
Yep.
yeah, she's a great fighter, but at the same time, she is missing some pieces there. The sisters, they run into some trouble trying to execute their heist, as they do, which I thought was great. And then the whole fight scene there was awesome, where Rafa's trying to punch the foreman, and he's just like completely ignoring it.
Yep.
It was this like, we know that these sisters don't know anything about outside of their world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anybody who knew anything about Trandosians wouldn't dare pick a fight with them. So it was kind of cool to see her just chutzpah, her spunk, and like, I'm going to keep fighting this guy, even though I hit him and he doesn't get hurt. I'm just going to keep on kicking. And, I thought that was charming in a way.
Yeah. Well, they don't give up. That's the thing that's amazing about him, is that they just keep pushing. And I like the assumption that that Ahsoka was going to escape. Like Rafa's assumption wasn't that Ahsoka was going to die and that she was going to feel bad about it. It's that she was going to escape and then hold it over Rafa's head for the rest of her life. It's just like, all right, okay. These guys have for all of that they've been through, they're still eternal optimists.
Yep.
And then they managed to get back to Marg Krim just in time to see Ahsoka having been brought before him, and she's about to be executed as a Jedi, or at least taken to before Maul as a Jedi. And the sisters finally find out that she is, and they have that moment where Ahsoka says, "Well, I was trained as a Jedi, but I left," and it's like, you can do that? So, which I think is interesting, because I wonder how people would react to priests that have left the priesthood, and if it would be the same kind of situation. Like, you can do that, and it's, but then the same thing isn't true about marriage at all, which is really funny. Like, you can just leave marriage. Oh yeah, well, that happens all the time. So,
well, and so, okay, I feel kind of bad, but Ahsoka, was she ever a full Jedi Knight, or was she just always a Padawan?
I don't remember. I was thinking about that. I don't know that she ever had the trials.
Yeah. I want to say she was a Padawan, because I remember when she left, she took off the little, I guess, bead thing that she had instead of the braid. And so...
Yeah, she never finished.
I guess it would be kind of like, it's kind of like a seminarian who leaves.
Yeah. Right.
So it's kind of interesting that, I guess, in this story, in this situation, like, people just don't know that you can be Force sensitive, be trained as a Jedi, but not actually
be a Jedi.
Keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they see them all kind of interacting the same way, right? And I think their power level is so far beyond the average that anybody who's even moderately adult-like and able to, just cut through your entire force on the way to get to you that's a Jedi. It doesn't matter what you call them, what the Jedi call them. That's a Jedi. I'm not going to worry about the rest of it.
Does the average person know what a Sith is then, or like that you can sort of twist the force? I mean, I would think that would just be beyond their understanding, most people don't even know really about the force and what it does, as we've seen from Rey's training.
Right.
True.
So
that's a good question. It would be interesting to me to see also how maybe other Force users who aren't trained as Jedi, especially during, after the purge, because there's no Jedi Council at that point, like how they're received. Are they kind of considered witch doctors? Is it more like that brings up a whole lot of questions. It really does.
Yeah.
And I think, we started to see that when we first saw the sisters talking about the Jedi and how they had a completely different view from the Jedi than we normally assume everyone has, but it must be possible for people to have that negative view of them, for sure. So, and at this point, I almost feel bad for Mark Krim, honestly, because in the middle of all of this, like, he seems like a secondary character to some kind of weird soap opera when all three of them start getting into a fight. He's just like, oh gosh, just kill them all. Like, I can see where he's coming from. So poor guy, he's just having a bad day. And it only gets worse because the trio's execution's foiled when Ahsoka's bombs go off, and it destroys a large portion of the Pike's narco spice production. And this is the point right here. We get to see the amazingly expressive Mandalorian mask as the Mandalorian stands there, and you can just see the visible sigh as whatever their operation was. We don't even know. It's gone. Like, you just see her like, she doesn't even move her hands or anything, but you can just feel the sigh kind of come off of her, like, oh, okay, fine. That plan's done. And it's like, she knew it was coming, but she's still like just watching the whole thing blow up. It's like, oh, okay, great.
Holding on a little bit of hope, but nope.
Yep. Yeah. The Jedi got involved, which again, if you haven't seen the Jedi Party series, definitely not PG rated. It's PG-13, possibly even R, but it's hilarious because they take that spin on the Jedi where they're like the party boys, and everywhere they go, they blow everything up. So it's fantastic. So finally the trio manages to escape. They get to the ship. They outrun the Pike Air Force, and some more technical talk about deflector shields, which I thought was really cool. And then there's the very brave, I would say, because she's finally reunited with her ship. Trace makes that brave decision to turn the ship around directly and say, well, we've still got the forward shields, and place chicken with this last fighter from the Pikes, and
she has
wins.
faith in the Silver Angel.
There
right?
you go. Yes. It's phenomenal. And poor thing, she finally gets the ship back, and then is willing to sacrifice it to manage to get them all off. So that's pretty cool. And then they make it back to Coruscant. So they escape. They make it back to Coruscant, and we see the Mandalorian ship following them off the planet. And they have this rare moment of tenderness between Rafa and Ahsoka when Rafa mentions to her that she's definitely a Jedi, but she's all that Rafa would hope for a Jedi to be, which I thought was a really good way to kind of wrap up that relationship in a positive way. But at this point, Ahsoka's past catches up with her. She can't run from it. And this is when we finally see Bo-Katan take off her helmet and reveal who she is, and that she's interested in working together with Ahsoka now that they have a common enemy in Maul. So what do you guys think about that moment?
Well, and I think it's back to that fortune cooking you just mentioned again, the reality of destiny. And I know Peter Kraft has a phenomenal talk, and he talks about this theme quite a bit in some of his books. But the idea of fated and free, that they're not mutually exclusive. So it's not like Ahsoka doesn't have a choice. She has a choice. She could completely blow it off forever. But there's just this like destiny. It's like the freest thing. Lewis talked about that too. It's like the freest thing she's ever done, and also the most kind of fated, and even like Luke, we see that all over Star Wars. Some people got upset, in episode 9 with him. They said when he says to Rey, she's going to stay on the island, she says, I'm doing what you did. And he said, I was wrong, and they're like, oh, that's a retcon. I'm like, that's like saying St. Paul's conversion was a retcon.
Right.
Like he realized he was wrong, like you have this destiny that you can't really run from, it's not going to leave you alone.
Yeah.
And I think that's all of us to some extent, whatever we're called to, that there's that thing, even if it's really scary, or, you have all these reasons to not do it, but if you don't, like, you can't look in the mirror, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's, I really think they did a great job of these few episodes, at least, taking us into her struggle, which, you see that even, I think, in Rebels too, with her later on, whatever goes on with these next few episodes, that's still in some ways unresolved, but she's just somehow she knows she has to be part of it, you know. And I really respect that about the character, and I think it's a really creative, you know, sort of parallel path to some of the main characters we were used to.
Yeah, I really appreciated in the behind the scenes little snippet that they have on StarWars.com about this episode that Dave Filoni was talking about how he felt that in the prequel era, Qui-Gon Jinn was the Jedi who had the most balanced understanding of love, that you can love someone without being attached to them. And he said that he felt that Ahsoka was the one who sort of had that passed on to her so that she understood that in a richer way than many of the other Jedi did. And I think you can sort of see that in this whole arc that we've been talking about, you know, with Trace and Rafa, just how she really does love them. And, you know, she talks a lot about this, this idea of helping people and essentially loving them, you know, wanting the best for them. And, you know, she doesn't seem to have any attachment. You know, she definitely has affection for these sisters, but she doesn't have an attachment to where she wouldn't want to leave them. She would always want to guard them and protect them like Anakin, you know. So yeah, I thought it was really a very healthy sort of parting of ways with her and the sisters. And you can see that she is maturing, you know, as a person, that she's continuing to ask these questions about who she is in relation to, her destiny, and really just finding her identity.
Yeah. I thought it was nice that the sisters also help convince her to go. You know, they're like, they're very much like, no, this is what you're meant to do. Like, they can tell, even if she's not willing to admit it fully yet. And then they ask her, you know, you're kind of worried. You're worried about, I don't remember how they phrase it, but you're worried about your past. And she mentions that she's sort of worried about, you know, going back to the Jedi. And, you know, that's an interesting thing for her to know, that she's closed off that part of her life, and that she's moving beyond that, but that she's still keeping all of those values and everything that she learned that was good and positive. And you kind of see that in the sisters, because they're able to turn back to being, you know, to reclaim the best parts of their past through this interaction with her, and so that they remember who their parents were and what their parents stood for, and are now kind of moving back toward that moment, which I think brings me to the burning question on my mind is, what are they going to do with all of that spice that is still in the hold of the ship?
I know. I was like, what? How? What? Why? What? Do you still have it?
Well, the crates were all still there, so I'm assuming that they still have like that whole shipment. So I'm, you know, my hope is that they are going to now deliver that to a medical facility, and it's going to become medicine. So they've not only did they not deliver the original set of spice to the Pikes, but now they are actually going to take this set, and I'm hoping that's what ends up happening with, and I hope they touch on that a little bit later too. That would be really nice.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So I think, you know, that wraps up the story arc. Ahsoka goes on to the Mandalorian ship with Bo-Katan, and we are assuming that from that point they're going to complete the operation that she foiled on the Pike Syndicate planet by joining them to try and track down Maul, now that she does have some valuable information in that way. And I think, you know, like we've been talking about, the arc of this story has been very much about facing one's past and how we move forward from it. And, you know, my wife mentioned after the very first fortune cookie, she said, oh, that's very much like the every saint has a past and every sinner has a future quote. And I thought, yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think it makes it really interesting to come back to this final moment of, you know, Ahsoka being leery of returning to her past, but then at the same time, the sisters, you know, like finding the best of their past as they go forward. Yeah. So how about you guys? Any other final thoughts from you guys about that?
I just think, you know, I know we're not expressly speaking here, reviewing or directly kind of thinking about the Mandalorian per se, but it's in the back of my mind, and I can't help but just think here, when she says to her so quickly, Bo-Katan says that Death Watch is finished or something to that effect, and it just makes me wonder, like I just can't stop wondering about the rescue scene we see in Mandalorian, where they save him as a kid. Like, we know it's somewhere in here, but I can't help but wonder, is that them? Like, is it Death Watch after they're kind of finished, but they're not Death Watch as bad as they were anymore? I don't know. I'm curious about some of those connections are, or, like how she might play into that, or where, I don't know. It's just kind of cool, the overlap I keep thinking about. And especially now with Ahsoka, being announced to be live action now, in Mandalorian season 2, there's obviously all sorts of cool things we could see these next few episodes. It might just give us some seeds to kind of, I don't know, wonder about for the next few months at least. So I'm excited for that.
Definitely.
Yeah. And for me, I just, Star Wars is so great. And I think this arc was very, it's sort of like what I love about Star Wars in a capsule in a way, because, we're talking about like drug dealing in space, but then it's so relatable.
Yeah.
And a little sort of moment that we didn't touch on was there's this, I guess, homeless Godel character.
Oh, yeah.
On Obadiah, and he is asking for credits because he needs to eat. And Rafa is just like, I don't have time for you, and this is when Ahsoka is telling her, like, well, you just do good things for people because that's the thing to do. You help people out. And, I just like how it was. I mean, we could all see ourselves in that situation. I certainly did, just flashbacks to, when you meet somebody on the street and they're asking for money because they need food. And it's something that, we had friendship themes here. We had, just decision making, vocation. I mean, it's all just, I just love it. I guess those are my my gargled final thoughts about this arc. It was great.
That was really good because I think it was very relatable, even though it's dealing with, high crime syndicate and all this kind of stuff. It's very, all of the themes were very relatable, and you could see yourself very much in all the characters, and that was, I love the Clone Wars for that, because as simplistic as some people complain about it being, it's really good because it's a 30-minute episode. You don't have time for it to be, super complicated. But at the same time, it really gives you, especially kids, that in to the higher concepts of the archetypes that Star Wars deals with. Because it's very easy to say, oh, there's definitely good and there's definitely evil. But good and evil don't always look good and evil. And that's what you see a lot in these few episodes, is that there's some reasons that people choose the wrong path that we can't always be sure of. And sometimes even the good people are responsible for those people choosing the wrong path. And that's, that's how we see in the sisters being where they are and the Jedi that they've had to deal with. All right. Well, that's it from us. What do you think of these episodes of the Clone Wars? Be sure to email or comment on our Facebook or Twitter page and let us know. You can email us any feedback at starwars@sqpn.com, and find StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, and on Twitter at SQPN. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Star Wars, including Megan, Neil, Rhonda, and Meg, and Devin. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or the SQPN YouTube channel. To find previous versions of The Secrets of Star Wars, please visit sqpn.com/Star Wars. And while we'll certainly be back in a couple of weeks to review the next 2 episodes of the 7th season of Clone Wars, we'd like to invite you all to join us for a special Facebook Live episode on May the 4th. at 9 p.m. Eastern time, U.S. Now, so this is the point where it makes me reminds me of the need to have like some kind of galactic standard time, like one rotation, because we're dealing with time zones. We've got listeners who are in Australia, who are in Europe, and so for the live episode, we will be meeting on May the 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern time, U.S. So we'll be talking about what being a Star Wars fan means to us, covering some exciting Star Wars news like the announcement of the High Republic focus and the live-action Ahsoka coming up in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. But we'd also like to cover some questions from our listeners, so email, Facebook message, or tweet them to SQPN, and we'll do our best to answer any Star Wars party questions that come our way for the celebration of our favorite galaxy far, far away. Until then, Angela Cialana, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to May the 4th.
Mike Creevy, thanks to you as well.
That's always a lot of fun, and I can't wait for that either.
All right. And once again, I'm Thomas Senherho. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.